What's up? Joey here at School of Motion, and welcome to day 3 of 30 days of After Effects. Today we're gonna talk about one of my favorite topics, expressions. It's also one of the dorkiest things that a grown man can talk about. Today we're gonna take a look at how to animate some gears because they're kind of a perfect example of something that moves in a mathematical way. And that's something that you don't wanna necessarily have to keyframe, especially if you have tons and tons of gears to animate. I'm gonna show you some strategies on how to deal with multiple gears. And also, don't forget to sign up for a free student account so you can grab the project files from this lesson and the expressions as well as assets from any other lesson on the site. Now let's dive into After Effects and get started. So more expressions for you guys, and those of you who have not watched Intro to After Effects Expressions, you should probably watch that one first because that's gonna let this tutorial make a whole lot more sense for you. I'll link to that in the description for this tutorial. So what I wanna show you is just another cool way to use expressions. And this is actually gonna get slightly advanced just because when I started building this thing out, as happens so often, you think that this is a simple problem to solve and it ends up being more complicated than you thought. So what I want to show you guys is specifically how to create a system of interlocking gears that really work like real gears. They actually turn correctly and accurately and they don't intersect. And you can control exactly how fast they're turning and they all turn, together. So let's dive right in, get started here. So I have, here's what I did. I went into Illustrator and I made 4 gears, right? So I made this one and then a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, and a little bit smaller. All right. And so let's bring those into a comp and take a look at them. So I'm just going to make a new comp. We're going to call this gear vid. And I am going to just make this a light colored background so we can take a look at it. All right, so let's just drag all these in there one by one. So you got gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, and gear 4. Okay, so when I started out creating this tutorial, what I thought I would do is just sort of eyeball, the speed of these gears and come up with an expression rig that would let me just kind of keep nudging and adjusting the speed of each gear until it looked right. And it turns out that's actually very tricky because if this gear, let's say this big one, spins around 6 times, then this little one has to spin the exact correct number of times. Otherwise, the teeth are going to start intersecting with each other, and that's not what I wanted. So I kind of beat my head against my desk for a while, and I did some Googling, and what I found out is that the right way to do this is A, you have to make sure that all of the teeth of these gears are the same size. And what I mean by that is even though this little guy is much smaller than this big guy, if you look at the actual size of the teeth, right, they're the same. Okay, so when I made these in Illustrator, I just made sure to use the exact same size. And I can get into exactly how I did that in a different tutorial if anyone's curious about how I made the gears. So now that I've got them set up so that they can actually work like real gears, I had to figure out the math involved in making gears work together. And it actually wasn't as complicated as I thought. So let me start building this rig and then I'll get into the math behind the way gears work. And I hate that there's so much math in my tutorials, but unfortunately motion design is really full of math in kind of sneaky ways. So let's start out by making a Knoll. And this is going to be the gear controller. Okay, so this is actually gonna have the property on it that I will keyframe to rotate these gears. So to do that, I'm gonna add an expression control, specifically an angle control. All right, and so what I want is to be able to rotate this and have all of the gears rotate correctly. And, there's some other ways you could animate these where they sort of animate themselves. Maybe I could use a time expression so that they're constantly rotating. But the good thing about doing it this way is that I can have them kind of jerk when they start, maybe have them overshoot, speed up, slow down, and I can really just control it very nicely with that. So let's start with this first gear and let's think about what kind of controls you're gonna need for a gear. So if I'm rotating this, right, and let me just put a keyframe on it. Put a keyframe here, move forward 3 seconds, and why don't we have that just do one rotation, okay? So that control is just rotating, all right, and it's not driving anything yet. So what I could do is I could bring up the rotation property of this gear, right, and bring up this angle control, right? I can just hit E, bring up the angle control effect, and then open that up. So now if I hold Option and I click stopwatch on rotation, right, it opens up an expression for the rotation property on this layer, and I can pick whip to that angle control. All right, and so now that gear is rotating based on what this angle control is doing. That's wonderful, okay? So now what about this gear? Well, there's one problem is this gear is going to have to spin the opposite direction, okay? So I know that I'm gonna need the ability to tell the gear which way it's rotating. On top of that, let's just do this real quick so you can see. If I just copy this expression, I can just hit Command-C, come up to gear 2 and hit Command-V and it'll paste it. And obviously it's not rotating the right way. So I'm gonna double tap U. This is kind of a new thing with the Creative Cloud version of After Effects. If you hit U, it will not bring up any expressions. You have to hit U twice. It'll bring up keyframes, just not expressions. If I open this expression and I put a negative symbol in front of it, it will now rotate backwards. But you can see that it looks okay here, but if I scrub forward a few frames, it's gonna start, let me scrub backwards actually, right there. You can see it's actually intersecting. The gears or the teeth are intersecting because this gear has less teeth, so it has to spin at a different speed, okay? So I'm also gonna need to be able to tell each gear how much faster or slower than the first gear in this chain, how fast or slow it should go. So that's two pieces of information I know I'm going to need. So why don't I start, I'm gonna just say, and this is the way actual gear systems work, you have one gear that is sort of the primary moving gear, all right? And so I'm gonna say gear 1 is that gear. This is the gear that everything else moves based off of. So I'm gonna make it a different color, just so I can remember that. And I could maybe even lock it, all right? So in this gear control, I need to add one more expression here, or expression controller, and this is what I discovered. So in order to figure out how slow or fast this gear needs to move, what you're supposed to do is divide the number of teeth in the main gear by the number of teeth in the next gear, okay? So I counted, this gear has 18 teeth in it, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a slider control. Slider controls are just handy because they let you just type in a number. And I'm gonna rename this gear teeth count. Okay, and I'm gonna put 18 there. And the reason I'm not hard coding this 18 in somewhere is just in case, you ever decided to make this the main gear, right? It just makes everything easier if you kind of future-proof it. So gear teeth count is 18. And again, this is referring to the main gear, this first gear. So on the next gear, I'm gonna need two controls. One control is going to be the number of teeth on this gear. So I'll just say number of teeth. Then the next thing I'm gonna need to tell it is it rotating clockwise or counterclockwise, okay? So to do that, I could just add another expression control called a checkbox control. All right, and this just lets you turn something on or off like this. So I could say clockwise question mark, and there you go, there's my controls. So now let's wire these things together and figure out how the heck this is gonna work. So when I do this, I'm gonna use more expression code than you actually need because I find it's better to do that. It makes it easier to read sometimes, okay? When you start writing a lot of expressions, and I use a lot of expressions, probably every project I use them, it's very easy to forget what the expression's doing or why you did something a certain way. So it's really nice to make it a little bit easier to read, okay? So let's open up the rotation property of gear 2, delete the expression that's in there, and let's start with a new expression, okay? So I'm gonna option click on the stopwatch, and first thing I wanna do is define the variables that I'm going to be dealing with here. And again, you don't need to do this, but it just makes it easier to think about and easier to read. So first thing I want to know is the number of teeth in this gear. So I'm just going to make a variable called num teeth. Okay, and you see the way I'm typing this, where I have lowercase and then on a new word, I just do an initial caps. That's a very common way. If you ever see code or talk to a programmer, that's how a lot of them do it. So I've kind of adopted that. So the number of teeth equals whatever this slider is set to. Okay, so I'm just pick whipping. Every line in your expression needs to end with a semicolon. Okay, that's very important. It's like the period at the end of the sentence. The next thing I need to know is this clockwise checkbox checked? So I'm just going to say clockwise equals this. Okay, now what the heck does that mean? This first expression makes sense, right? The number of teeth equals whatever this number is, but the second one doesn't really make sense. What this checkbox actually does is it returns a 0 if it's not checked and a 1 if it is checked. So this clockwise variable will either be 0 or 1, okay? And I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. So the next thing we need to know is I'm just going to hit enter for a minute, come back up here. So we also need to know what this angle control is set to and what this main gear teeth count is set to. In fact, let me rename that so it's a little bit clearer. This is the main gear teeth count, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that both of these properties are opened up on the timeline so that I can access this layer but still pick whip to them, okay? So let's go back to our expression and keep adding stuff. So we need to know the main gear teeth, okay? So the number of teeth in the main gear is going to equal this slider, okay? Semicolon. And then the last thing we need to know is the control angle, right? So what is this gear control's angle control set to? And I'll just call it main control equals that. Okay, so now in this expression, and this is one of the things that bothers me about After Effects, I wish it would do a better job of giving you more room for expressions when you need. If you're running out of room, you can just sort of move your mouse over the bottom sort of boundary of that box, and then you can stretch it out. You get a little more room. Okay, so we've got our variables now. So let's think about the way this works. So in order to find out how much faster or slower this gear is going to turn than the main gear, we divide this number of teeth by this number of teeth, okay? So we're gonna try to figure out the ratio of the speed, that we want to basically multiply times the speed to get the new speed for our smaller gear. So let's make a variable called ratio. We're going to say ratio equals, and it's going to be this number, right? The number of teeth in the main gear. So main gear teeth divided by the number of teeth in this, which is this variable, num teeth, okay? So type that in, semicolon. Great. So that's the ratio, okay? Now there's another part to this, which is it going to turn clockwise or counterclockwise? So now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. And again, with expressions, once you use an expression twice, you're gonna remember it, and it's gonna work for you. The first time you try to do it, you're gonna type something in wrong, you're gonna screw it up, and you're gonna have to spend an hour figuring that out. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works. Once you do it the second time, then you'll remember it. At least that's how it works with me. So we sort of have two cases here. If it's turning clockwise, okay, let's say that, the angle of this gear here is 90 degrees. Well, this gear needs to be slightly less than that because it's got less teeth, so it's turning slower, okay? So that means that, we have to basically multiply this angle times the ratio, okay? If that makes sense. If it's turning counterclockwise, though, it's actually got to go backwards. So it has to turn in a negative direction, which means we need to multiply the ratio by -1 to get this to turn the right way. All right, so when you have any kind of situation where if one thing happens, do this, otherwise do something else, the way you do that with expressions is you use an if statement. And these are pretty simple logically. The only tricky thing about them is that you have to remember the syntax and parentheses and brackets and making sure everything is formatted correctly, otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to say if, okay? That's easy. Now we need to put in parentheses the thing that we are testing. And what we are testing is the clockwise variable, so is clockwise equal to 1, okay? Now you'll see I put 2 equal signs in there. When you use an if statement and you want to see if something's equal to a specific number, you have to use 2 equal signs. There's some programming reasons why it's not 1 equal sign. I'm not going to get into that. Just remember it has to be 2 equal signs. All right, if clockwise equals 1, okay? Meaning, is this checkbox checked? All right, now we're going to tell it what do you do if clockwise is 1. And the way you do this is you open a bracket. All right, and now whatever I put after that bracket is what will happen if clockwise is 1. Oh, excuse me. And you can have multiple lines. You can have a whole bunch of things happen. And generally, when you're coding, it's just sort of common practice to go to the next line. So you open up this bracket here, you go to the next line, and you hit tab to go over a little bit, and it makes it a little bit easier to read, okay? Now, if clockwise is 1, what's going to happen is we're just going to multiply the ratio times the main control, okay? So we're going to say if clockwise equals 1, then the answer to this, right, the actual number we want to feed into rotation is ratio, this ratio variable, times main control, okay? That's it. So that's the end of this part. So I'm going to close the bracket, okay? Now you can stop there if you want to, or you can add another little piece, which is else, okay? And then you open another bracket and go to the next line. Now what this is saying, and you can probably figure it out just because it makes sense. If clockwise is 1, do this, else or otherwise, do something else. If it's supposed to go counterclockwise, then what we're going to do is we're going to return ratio times main control times -1, okay? And that -1 is just going to make that rotation happen backwards, okay? Go to the next line, close the brackets, and we're getting an error. So let's take a look. All right, okay, so this is good. This is great here. So right now, if let me hit OK, what it's telling me is that it's trying to divide something by 0, and obviously you can't divide by 0, and that's because this number of teeth has been left set at 0. Now, obviously, you're never going to have a gear with 0 teeth, so that's always going to have a number in it. But I'm glad you guys saw that. Expressions are not like bulletproof software code. If you were programming something, you know, if I was really trying to button this rig up and make it so that you would never have errors, I would say if clockwise is 1, do this. Otherwise, do this. I would also check to see if this number is set to 0. Then I need to tell the expression how to handle that. Now I'm not going to do that, but just so you guys know, that's why that little error message came up. All right, so let's figure out how many teeth this gear actually has. So let's start with this one, right? That's in between the two gears. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 16 gears on that one, 16 teeth. So we type in 16, okay? Now, you can see that the expression is not turned on because you've got this little icon, the equal sign with a slash through it. So if I click that now, everything should work because we're no longer dividing by 0. So just remember that you need to make sure that this slider is not set to 0 if you want this expression to work. So let's see what's happening now. Okay, so it's going the wrong way, all right, because it's set to clockwise. Now if we uncheck that, hey, look at that, it's working. And in fact, if we go through it frame by frame, you can see that the teeth never actually intersect. It's working perfectly on the first try, which is kind of amazing. So let's stretch this keyframe out here so we can get a better look at this, okay? Cool. Now, I want to show you something because there's one other piece that we need to add to this expression to really make it versatile. And so let's say that I had this gear here, okay? And that's exactly where I want that gear. That's exactly where I want that gear. The problem is the teeth are intersecting. Now they're moving at the right speed, but the problem is I just need to offset this rotation a little bit so that it will fit properly in this gear. So now I'm realizing, oh, I also need the ability to, just offset the rotation a few degrees in either direction to make it fit perfectly. So with that gear selected, I'm going to add another slider control, and I'm just going to call this rotation offset. And so now where is this going to plug in? So let's bring up our rotation expression right there. Okay. And let's think about this. So what I need to be able to do, first, let me define this as a variable, make it a little bit easier to deal with. I'll just call it offset equals this. Okay. And really all I need to do is add that offset to whatever the result is. And that should do it. Because if it's 0, it's not going to change the answer. And then I can make it positive or negative to kind of turn it one direction or the other. So why don't we just say if clockwise is 1 ratio times main control plus offset. And then I'll just add the same thing down here plus offset. And let's see if it works. So now if I adjust this expression, you can see I can just adjust it and then it should work perfectly. Okay. And now if I move it back here, I can just adjust it so that it works at that position. So that's pretty much the gear rig. Now we're ready to go. So now the way that you apply this to the other gears is you first copy the slider controls, because if you copy the expression first, that expression is looking for slider controls and the angle control and the checkbox. It's looking for controls that are not there, and it'll give you an error. So it's just a little bit easier to do it this way first. Copy the sliders. Let's paste them. And then you can just copy the rotation property. And it will copy the expression that's on there. So let me just paste that here too. All right, and now we can see if it's working on these gears. So here's gear 3. All right, and I'll put it down here. Now gear 3, how many teeth does it have, right? Like if we just hit play, it's obviously not working right. Well, first we know it's going the wrong direction, so let's just hit the clockwise checkbox. So now it'll go clockwise. And then we just need to count the teeth. So you've got 1 in there, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 teeth. So if you just type in 9 in there, now that one works perfectly too. Beautiful thing. And then if you need to nudge it a little bit, if you just want it to be a little bit more perfect, if you actually want it to look like the teeth are touching and it's pushing the teeth just a little bit, you can get really precise, right? And we could go back and then adjust gear 2. And this is the power of expressions, because it lets you be so precise with stuff like this. If you were just trying to manually keyframe this, it would be a nightmare. But with expressions, it's actually pretty easy once you wrap your head around, the math. And I'm sorry again with the math, but once you wrap your head around it, and it's not that difficult, you can do all this stuff so fast. All right, so obviously this one, it's turning the right direction, it's just not turning fast enough. And it's got 6 teeth. So we just type 6 in there, and then we can adjust the offset of it. All right, and actually, I want this to look like it's being pushed by this one. So there we go. All right, so there we go, right? Gears turning perfectly, teeth not intersecting, and that's all there is to it. It's really kind of that simple. You're done. The rest of it is just copying and pasting and arranging the gears the way you want. One good thing to know, if I take this gear, for example, and just duplicate it, bring it over here, this little expression, it doesn't break if you scale things down a little bit. You can get away with scaling these just a little bit. All right, you see it still works. It doesn't intersect. So you can get a ton of variety. And of course, I only made 4 little gears here, because I was, kind of being lazy and I just didn't want to spend that much time making gears. But you can see even with just 4 gears, just, messing with the scale a little bit. And of course, these are vectors. So I can just turn on continuous rasterize and have, perfect shapes every single time. But you can get a ton of variety, and of course, you can play it with color and all that stuff. But now that you've built this little rig with simple controls, that any After Effects artist could figure out if you just, shot them a little email, now you're good to go. And again, the beauty of having this gear controller do all the work is that now, instead of having just like a simple move, maybe what you do is you have it sit still for a few frames, and then maybe it's like someone turned the motor on and it kind of like kicks back a little bit like that, hangs there for a couple frames, and then it kind of shoots forward. It just kind of goes a little too fast, and then kind of catches itself, pauses, and then it starts going, right? And I don't know how this is going to look, but let's see if we do a little RAM preview, right? You get like a little, like a little sputter, and you need a little sound effect. You need a little, or something. And then you have all this control. You can go into the curve editor, and you could say, okay, once it starts going, I want it to really slowly get going, and then I want it to end up being more or less linear. And then let's drop down in here, and let's have it really catch on that first. There we go. Yeah, see that? And then it starts turning slowly, and maybe that's too slowly. So we want to pull that handle back in. Yeah, there we go. Right? So now you have all the control with this one keyframe, but all of these gears are going to fit perfectly, and they're going to work perfectly. And you're just gonna have a much easier time. So I hope that this was useful. There was a lot of other stuff I didn't get into that I actually used to make the animation that you saw at the beginning of this tutorial. And if you have any questions about that stuff, please leave me a comment. You can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, and I'm definitely, I'm leaving some of this stuff out there because, I want to find out what you guys are interested in learning. Interesting fact, I actually used an expression to colorize the gears so that I could just sort of pick 4 colors and it would randomly select a color for me. So I didn't have to do that either. I'm an enormous Family Guy fan, so I hope you guys enjoyed that little Easter egg there. Anyway, I hope this was, useful, informative. Thank you guys. As always, I will see you guys next time. We're in 30 days of After Effects here. There's a lot more content coming, so stay tuned. Thank you for hanging out. I hope this helped you grasp
how much of a time saver expressions can be. If you have any questions, let us know on the site. And if you learned something valuable from this video, please share it around. It really helps us spread the word about School of Motion, and we truly appreciate it. Don't forget to sign up for a free student account to access the project files and the expressions from the lesson you just watched, plus a whole bunch of other awesomeness. I'll see you on the next one.